Have you ever felt that eerie, electric moment when the veil suddenly lifts and the manipulative people who once held so much power over you seem almost transparent? That exact instant when their tactics, once so effective, slide right off you like water off glass. It's a moment so rare, so profound, that few ever recognize it while it's happening. Yet for empaths, it marks the beginning of an inner revolution, a transformation so deep that it rewrites the very way you experience the world around you. What is this shift, and why does it feel like stepping from a darkened room into daylight? This transformation, which Carl Jung famously called the ultimate psychological evolution, is not just an abstract idea. It is a real, observable change, one that I've studied across thousands of cases, each revealing patterns too striking to ignore. In my work, I've identified 7 unmistakable signs that you've crossed this hidden threshold and activated your full empathic power. Most empaths wander through life believing their sensitivity is a fragile weakness to be managed, never realizing it's actually a dormant power, waiting, quietly, patiently, to be awakened. What you're about to discover could forever change the way you understand your own empathic nature. The psychological establishment rarely talks about this, and for good reason. Once empaths learn to consciously activate these abilities, the entire power dynamic in relationships begins to shift at its core. Suddenly, old hierarchies crumble, and new, liberating patterns emerge. If you've spent years feeling drained by certain people, absorbing the heavy emotions of others, or being told again and again that you're too sensitive, the insights you're about to hear may be the missing key to your psychological freedom. This isn't speculation or theory. This is applied psychological knowledge, knowledge that is already transforming lives. Before we dive into the 7 unmistakable signs of this evolution, take a moment to connect with a growing community of people just like you, people awakening to their true psychological potential. And if you're ready to accelerate this transformation, our private membership circle offers daily, in-depth content on psychological empowerment you won't find anywhere else. Here, we share the kind of shadow work insights that have already helped thousands reclaim their personal power in ways they never thought possible. Now, let's explore these 7 signs together. The first deadly sign that you've activated your empathic power is what Jung called shadow recognition. This is the sudden, almost shocking ability to see manipulation tactics with crystal clarity, while staying emotionally unmoved by them. Think back to all those times when someone said something that instantly triggered guilt, shame, inadequacy, or obligation. Suddenly, that power over you is gone. Then one day, almost mysteriously, the same tactic leaves you completely unmoved. The very behavior that once unsettled you now passes by like a faint echo in a distant hallway. You can observe it happening with a strange detachment, as though you're watching a predictable scene in a movie you've already seen countless times. Does this sound familiar? This isn't emotional numbness or dissociation. It's the opposite. A heightened state of awareness, a sharper perception of manipulation without taking in its emotional charge. Jung believed that this moment of recognition marked the true beginning of psychological individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated human being, rather than just a collection of triggered responses. Imagine that. Your reactions no longer dictated by others, but arising from your own center. Think back to a recent interaction with someone who typically leaves you feeling drained or emotionally reactive. Did you notice a different response in yourself? Perhaps a calm clarity where confusion once reigned. That shift isn't random or fleeting. It's the first indication that you're activating neural pathways that have lain dormant beneath years of conditioning. Pathways now flickering to life with new strength. You're not becoming less empathic. In fact, you're becoming more precisely attuned, like upgrading from an old radio that picked up every frequency in a jumbled mess to a sophisticated receiver capable of distinguishing between signals with perfect clarity. This is why the second deadly sign emerges so clearly, what psychologists call emotional differentiation, the sudden ability to distinguish between your emotions and those you're absorbing from others. Before this activation, your emotional system operated like a sponge, automatically soaking up whatever energy surrounded you without filtration. But now, you can feel a distinct separation. You might stand next to someone radiating anxiety and calmly realize, I can sense their anxiety, but it's not mine. This boundary isn't created through mental effort or visualization exercises. It emerges naturally from a fundamental shift in how your nervous system processes emotional information. It's as if your psychological operating system has received a critical update, one that finally tags emotional data with its correct source. Have you noticed this happening? That clear sense of this isn't my emotion when standing in the presence of powerful feelings from others? This new differentiation creates a revolutionary change in your daily experience. Environments that once overwhelmed you, crowded spaces, intense conversations, conflict situations, suddenly become navigable terrain. You can remain present without being swamped by the emotional currents around you. And this isn't merely a quality of life improvement. It's a fundamental shift in how you exist in the world. From here, another transformation begins to surface. The third deadly sign of activated empath power is intuitive accuracy, a dramatic increase in the reliability of your intuitive hits about people and situations. Before this activation, you likely experienced intuitive flashes that you would dismiss or override with logical reasoning, especially when those flashes contradicted what someone was telling you. How many times did you push aside that inner voice, only to regret it later? But now these intuitive impressions arrive with a compelling clarity that's almost impossible to ignore. You might meet someone who presents themselves perfectly on paper, saying all the right things, and yet your intuition sends a clear warning signal. Instead of dismissing this signal as irrational prejudice, you recognize it for what it is: valuable data from your empathic intelligence. Jung believed that this intuitive function wasn't mystical at all, but a sophisticated form of pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. When your empathic power activates, this system begins feeding directly into your conscious mind, no longer filtered through social conditioning or people-pleasing tendencies. The result is an almost uncanny accuracy in your assessment of another person's authentic nature, rather than their carefully constructed persona. Have you experienced moments when you simply knew something about a person or situation, only to have that knowing validated later on? Have these intuitive impressions become more frequent and more accurate? This isn't coincidence or confirmation bias. It's your empathic intelligence operating at its optimal capacity, free from the doubt and second-guessing that once muted its signals. The fourth deadly sign is energetic boundaries. This is the development of what feels like an invisible yet tangible field around you, that regulates your energetic exchanges with others. Before this activation, you likely felt perpetually vulnerable to energy intrusions, as if you had no skin in the emotional realm. Other people's moods, needs, and demands would penetrate your awareness without any filtration system. But now you sense a definite boundary. Not a rigid wall, but a semi-permeable membrane that allows you to choose what you engage with instead of automatically absorbing everything in your vicinity. This boundary isn't created through visualization exercises or affirmations, though such practices can support it. It emerges organically from the neurobiological changes happening in your system as your empathic power activates. Research in the field of psychoneuroimmunology shows measurable changes in how the autonomic nervous system functions in empaths who have crossed this threshold. Your body literally begins processing environmental stimuli differently, creating a biological foundation for psychological boundaries. Have you noticed that people who once easily overwhelmed your emotional space now seem to encounter a natural buffer, one that allows you to engage deeply with others without feeling invaded or depleted? This energetic boundary is perhaps the most transformative aspect of activated empath power, because it fundamentally changes how you experience being in relationship with others. The fifth deadly sign is intuitive discernment, an immediate recognition of the difference between authentic connection and manipulation. Before your empathic power activated, these two experiences might have felt confusingly similar. A skilled manipulator showing intense interest in you could trigger the same emotional response as genuine connection, leaving you unsure of what you were really experiencing. But now everything feels different. You can perceive a clear, qualitative distinction between the two. Authentic connection feels expansive, uplifting, energizing, and mutually enhancing, as though both people are elevated by their exchange. Manipulation, no matter how skillfully it is executed, carries a distinctive energetic signature that you can spot instantly. It feels constricted, draining, and depleting, like a subtle tightening in your body that serves as an unmistakable warning signal. This discernment doesn't depend on conscious reasoning or logical analysis. It operates at a precognitive level, registering in your nervous system before your mind has time to think. Jung referred to this ability as the activation of the subtle body, the aspect of your being that perceives energetic realities invisible to the rational mind. When your empathic power activates, this subtle perception grows increasingly reliable, enabling you to navigate relationships with a level of clarity you may never have thought possible. Have you experienced this shift yourself? That uncanny moment when your body seems to send you a direct signal about the true nature of an interaction, regardless of the words or surface appearances. This intuitive discernment becomes an invaluable guidance system, helping you form healthier relationships that align with your authentic needs and protect you from hidden manipulation. The sixth deadly sign is emotional independence, a profound shift in your relationship with external validation and approval. Before your empathic power activated, you probably measured much of your worth through the responses of others. A smile, praise, or recognition could elevate you, while disapproval, rejection, or criticism might send you spiraling into self-doubt. Your emotional state rose and fell according to the judgments around you. But now, a strange new phenomenon arises: the ability to hold your emotional center regardless of external reactions. You can hear criticism without immediately absorbing it as truth. You can face disapproval without collapsing into doubt or shame. And most importantly, you can stand firmly in your truth, even when it creates discomfort in those around you. This independence is not emotional detachment, nor is it apathy. In fact, it is quite the opposite. It is a deeply engaged presence that doesn't require positive feedback in order to maintain its integrity. Jung described this state as self-possession, a condition in which your sense of self no longer depends on external validation, but flows from an unshakable connection to your own inner authority. This shift fundamentally changes your relationship dynamics because you are no longer engaging from a place of emotional need or dependency. Have you noticed this new stability in your sense of self? The ability to care deeply about the feelings of others without making them responsible for your emotional state. It's a subtle but powerful change, one that redefines how you show up in every interaction. This independence creates the foundation for truly reciprocal relationships, partnerships built on mutual respect, rather than the codependent dynamics that often characterized many empath connections before their power fully activated. And it leads naturally into the seventh and most definitive sign of activated empath power, what Jung called shadow integration, the ability to recognize, accept, and consciously work with your own shadow aspects. The shadow is not something external or mysterious. It contains all the parts of yourself that you've rejected, suppressed, or disowned over the years. Anger, selfishness, manipulation, power, desire, and other qualities your family system or culture may have deemed unacceptable. Before your empathic power activates, these shadow elements operate largely outside of awareness, often projected onto others, or erupting in unconscious behaviors that contradict your conscious values. But once activation occurs, everything changes. These shadow qualities come into conscious recognition, and you gain the capacity to work with them intentionally, rather than being unconsciously controlled by them. This integration brings with it a profound psychological wholeness. You no longer feel the need to maintain an idealized self-image as only the good, nice, or spiritual person, because you have made peace with the full spectrum of your humanity. You can acknowledge your capacity for anger without being dominated by it. You can recognize your manipulative tendencies without acting them out destructively. You can even own your desire for power without abusing it. Far from diminishing your empathy, this integration makes it more authentic and grounded in reality rather than rooted in idealized projection. Have you begun to recognize and accept aspects of yourself that you once rejected or denied? Have you noticed a softening in your judgment toward these qualities in others as you begin to make peace with them in yourself? This shadow integration is the deepest sign that your empathic power has fully activated, transforming not only how you relate to others, but also how you understand and accept yourself. Together, these 7 signs represent nothing less than a fundamental transformation in the empath's psychological structure, a shift from unconscious absorption to conscious discernment, from boundaryless vulnerability to intentional engagement, from fragmented projection to integrated wholeness. When Jung described this process, he considered it not merely a form of personal healing, but an evolutionary step forward in human consciousness itself. The activated empath, in this sense, represents a new kind of human being, one who can engage deeply with others without losing themselves, who can perceive emotional and energetic realities without being overwhelmed by them, who can bring their full gifts into the world without being exploited for them. What's most remarkable about this transformation is that it often unfolds spontaneously, appearing to emerge at the very moment of a breaking point. After years of emotional exploitation, boundary violations, and patterns of self-abandonment, something within the empath system finally says enough, and a profound reorganization begins. It is as if the psyche carries its own intelligence and hidden healing mechanism, activating precisely when it is most needed. Yet here is the empowering truth. You don't have to wait for crisis to spark this process. Understanding these 7 signs allows you to consciously participate in your own empathic activation, rather than waiting passively for it to happen. Let me share 3 powerful catalysts that consistently accelerate this activation process. The first is conscious overwhelm, intentionally allowing yourself to feel the full weight of boundary violations and emotional exploitation without immediately dissociating or rationalizing them away. Many empaths have grown so accustomed to overriding their inner signals that they no longer register the violation clearly. By deliberately bringing awareness to these moments, not to sink into victimhood, but to honor the truth of your experience, you create the conditions for your system to initiate its natural protective response. The second catalyst is pattern recognition, systematically identifying the recurring dynamics in your relationships, especially those that leave you drained, confused, or diminished. When you begin to recognize these as repeating patterns rather than isolated events, you engage the higher-order areas of your brain responsible for complex recognition. This shift creates new neural pathways, allowing you to see manipulation tactics as systematic instead of personal, and making them far less effective in triggering your emotional reactions. The third and most powerful catalyst is intentional shadow retrieval, the active reclaiming of the disowned parts of yourself that you've unconsciously projected onto others. For many empaths, qualities such as anger, selfishness, and power have been so thoroughly rejected that they leave behind a lopsided psychological structure vulnerable to exploitation. By consciously embracing these qualities, not to act them out destructively, but to integrate them into your wholeness, you withdraw the projections that once kept you trapped in unhealthy dynamics. This retrieval creates immediate, visible shifts in how others respond to you, because they can no longer find the unconscious husks that once made you easy to manipulate. And what happens when you fully activate your empathic power? The transformation extends far beyond your personal relationships. Many activated empaths report experiencing profound changes, not only in their professional effectiveness, but also in their creative expression, physical health, and even their spiritual connection. The energy that was once drained away in the exhausting effort of managing other people's emotions is now released, becoming fully available for your authentic purpose. The clarity gained through shadow integration dissolves the self-sabotage that used to block your progress and success. And the emotional independence that comes with activation gives you the courage to take risks, to speak your truth, and to express yourself without the paralyzing fear of disapproval. This activation doesn't mean your life suddenly becomes perfect or free of challenges, but it does fundamentally change how you experience and navigate those challenges. Where once you felt victimized by circumstances, you now perceive opportunities for growth and transformation. Where you once absorbed other people's emotions as if they were your responsibility, you now offer compassion while refusing to carry their burden as your own. Where you once abandoned yourself to preserve harmony, you now bring your full, authentic presence into every interaction. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this transformation is how it radiates outward, touching not just you, but everyone around you. Activated empaths naturally create a field of permission, an atmosphere that invites others to be authentic instead of performative, integrated instead of fragmented, empowered instead of dependent. Without preaching or proselytizing, your very way of being demonstrates what is possible. The possibility of remaining sensitive while also being strong, of caring deeply without being exploited for that care, of seeing others clearly while still maintaining your own center. This is precisely why Jung regarded this activation as so essential for our collective evolution. In a world increasingly dominated by fragmentation, projection, and unconscious shadow expression, the activated empath embodies an integrated consciousness, one that can bridge differences without sacrificing truth, that can hold complexity without collapsing into simplistic polarization, that can engage with the full spectrum of human experience without being overwhelmed by it. If you recognize some of these 7 signs emerging in your own life, you are likely already in the midst of this activation process. Honor it as the profound transformation it truly is. Give yourself the space, the support, and the compassion needed to integrate these shifts fully. And most importantly, remember that the discomfort accompanying this process is not evidence that something is wrong. It is the natural growing pain of a consciousness expanding beyond its previous limitations. And if you don't yet recognize these signs, but you feel a longing for this transformation, you can begin by directing conscious attention to the catalysts we've already discussed. Pay close attention to the subtle signals your system sends when boundaries are crossed. These signals are often quiet, almost whisper-like, but they carry vital information. Notice the recurring patterns in relationships that leave you feeling depleted or unbalanced. Begin the courageous work of reclaiming the disowned qualities within yourself, especially those connected to power, self-prioritization, and authenticity. These practices create the inner conditions for your natural empathic intelligence to awaken and activate its full potential. And remember, this activation isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully who you already are. It's not about dulling your sensitivity, but learning how to channel it with greater precision and effectiveness. It's not about caring less, but about caring from a place of wholeness rather than deficiency. It's not about disconnecting from others, but about connecting from a place of choice rather than compulsion. The 7 deadly signs we've explored are deadly only to the old patterns of exploitation and self-abandonment that once kept your true empathic power dormant. They represent the death of an outdated way of being and the birth of something far more vital, integrated, and effective. Jung called this transformation the necessary death, the dissolution of false structures that must occur before authentic wholeness can emerge. As we close, I invite you to reflect on where you currently find yourself in this activation process. Which of these 7 signs do you already recognize in your experience? Which aspects are still in the process of emerging? And what shadows might still be awaiting integration? There is no rush, no finish line to cross. This process unfolds according to its own organic timing, unique to your journey and your life path. The very fact that you are engaged with these ideas is itself a sign that the activation has already begun, whether or not you've recognized all 7 signs yet. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and join the thousands of empaths worldwide who are navigating this transformation together. Share your experiences in the comments, because your insight may be exactly what another empath needs to hear today. And if you're ready to accelerate this process, consider joining our membership circle, where we explore these dynamics in far greater depth each day, offering tools, reflections, and guidance you won't find elsewhere. Until next time, always remember, your empathic nature is not a burden to manage, but a power to activate. And when it is fully expressed, it becomes one of the most transformative forces available to human consciousness.